long do you suggest webcomic chapters be? And to build off this, what advice do you have for planning out what goes into each chapter? So this is also going to depend on what exactly you mean by a chapter, because the meaning of that term has changed a little bit with the onset of stuff like Webtoon. On Webtoon, and I guess also on Tapas, where you have like longer updates, people will call a batch of updates a chapter. It's so weird because I do not think of chapters this way. With myself, and I know a lot of other comic artists who don't necessarily do the Webtoon format, a chapter is like a chapter in a novel. And so this is more a question about like, okay, how long is each chapter of your novel? Because for me, it's like a graphic novel, right? I tell stories in this format, and each chapter is like a series of scenes. And so how long your chapters are, honestly, it's gonna kind of be a matter of personal taste. Like, I've seen comics that will just end a chapter in the middle of a scene, and then the scene will pick up exactly where it left off in the next chapter. And I always personally thought that was a little bit silly. Me, personally, I pace Cast-Off and Cast-Off's chapters like an anime a little bit. So I imagine that if each chapter is roughly a 20-minute episode of a show, like an anime or like a cartoon or something, how much would you be able to fit reasonably into a 20-minute episode of like TV? That's how much I do for each chapter. And for me, it's less about page count and more about the events of the chapter, because some chapters will need more pages just because of the pacing, or like action scenes will balloon your page count like nothing else. Scenes with a lot of talking tend to be a little bit more condensed sometimes. It's very individualized. It's gonna depend. Now, if you're doing something like Webtoon and you're thinking about how long each update should be, I'm gonna call them updates from now on because I refuse to call them chapters because I'm old and I'm an old man shaking my cane at the sky. For each update, I would say get through a decent story beat, but I don't do Webtoon style comics, and so it's a little bit harder for me to suggest how to do those. I would say just like make sure that there's at least a story beat for the readers to sink their teeth into, but also like don't try and push out 40, 50, 60 panels per update if you're updating weekly and you can't keep up with it all. Like it's a complicated question because it is going to heavily depend on what you yourself are capable of. And the solution for that is always going to be test things out, experiment, see what works for you, see what's reasonable, look for feedback from your readers and your friends, get some friends to read it and be like, hey, do you guys think this is enough or should I go on it a little bit longer? See what works for you and your schedule and your update schedule and how much you can be putting into each update, all this other stuff. It really comes down to experimenting, and that's why I said before, learning how to experiment and learn from the results of your experiments is one of the best skills you can learn in this kind of field. Test it out, figure it out. Godspeed.